The year 2013.
국민 앞에 엄숙히 선서합니다.
It was a dynamic year filled with changes under a new administration. Arirang reporters worked hard here and there covering the major stories that happened in Korea.
이거 세 개, 미니 냄비 세트. 잠깐만 와서 카메라 여기 있거든요. 또 어떤 관리를 해줘야 돼?
So what were the major events of 2013?
A lot of polls have recently come out on approval ratings of President Park.
I'm always where the hottest stories are. Reporter Hwang Sung-hee.
Central Television this afternoon.
Reporter Kim Yeon-ji. There's always a scene. I want to share people's stories. Reporter Connie Lee. The hottest issue of the year was none other than news related to North Korea. In June, the first senior-level inter-Korean talks in 6 years fell through one day after being agreed upon. So the newsroom was under a lot of pressure with the abrupt changes in events. But the busiest reporter of all was...
Jenny, I'm done.
Unification Ministry correspondent Hwang Sung-hee.
20시에 브리핑한대요. 20시에 브리핑한대요? 네.
In the moments when big news breaks, immediate live connections to the news center are prepared.
According to... 저 그림 있나요? 다음이에요.
아니요, 그림 좀 더 볼 수 있어요.
있어요, 그림?
For more on why the plans were cancelled, we now connect live to our Unification Ministry correspondent Hwang Sung-hee at the Arirang News Center. Sung-hee, why the sudden change of heart?
Ji-hae, what a disappointment. The two Koreas canceled their plans after reportedly failing to reach an agreement on who would lead their respective delegations.
From a nuclear test earlier this year to the sudden shutdown of the Kaesong Industrial Complex, North Korea sure was the issue maker of the year.
As you know, the relationship between the two Koreas was quite frosty during the last administration. And I guess everyone was thinking that the inter-Korean talks could have served as a test bed for President Park Geun-hye's so-called trust-building policy.
The next day, following the cancellation of the inter-Korean talks.
시험 통화가 안 됐다고 하는데. 그럼 10시 쓰지 말고요. 네네, 오케이. 네.
A briefing at the Unification Ministry was cancelled as well.
선배, 브리핑 안 한대요, 오늘. 아니면은 선배 12시에 짧게 전화 연결 같은 걸 할까요?
Sung-hee, fill us in on the latest.
Yusan, Seoul's Unification Ministry says North Korea seems to have...
If the meeting went on as planned, Sung-hee would have been able to report on the outcome.
Just days after it was reopened.
The month of June was a disappointing month, both for Sung-hee and the Korean people.
You always have to be on standby when you cover North Korea because you never know what to expect. But I'm not really worried because if I can get a chance to cover the inter-Korean talks, because that kind of chance doesn't come around every day, I think that would be a really good experience for me.
But that was not all.
The two Koreas failed to reach an agreement.
Third time did not.
The tedious process of waiting continued into the month of July.
Two Koreas are now onto their fourth round.
Inter-Korean working level meetings continued over a long period of time over resuming operations at the Kaesong Industrial Complex. So Sung-hee was at the Unification Ministry almost every day during that period.
네.
진행이 안 돼서 정말 이거 뭐라고
Back then, a joint press corps was formed. Some members of the press pool went into the meeting held in Kaesong, North Korea, while the rest remained in Seoul to deliver the story based on the information they received from the location. As the whole nation was taking great interest, there was extensive media coverage about the meeting.
Sung-hee, what is the latest?
Kanyang, the officials are now probably engaged in their afternoon session as it was scheduled to begin sometime around 2 p.m. Korea time at their jointly run factory zone in the north. Now, one thing to note is that South Korea has said
the meeting ended without any agreement.
Well, from the third round of talks, South Korea sent a new chief delegate to Kaesong, and since the two Koreas have exchanged their stances at the previous talks, at the first and second talks, many were expecting that the Koreas will actually talk about the real issues, such as safeguards and whatnot, the globalization.
After a long wait filled with tension and anticipation, with live connections every 2 hours, the day ended in disappointment. But in the end, the Kaesong Industrial Complex resumed operations following a long process that ended with the 7th Inter-Korean meeting. And in December, the news of Hwang Sung-hee's execution. Shocking news kept coming out from North Korea, even up to the end of the year.
이거 지금 처음 들어오는 거예요? 아. 그럼 5시에 받을 수 있겠네요. 지금 캡처하고 있으니까.
The newsroom was under high alert once again amid the uncertainty in North Korea under the leadership of Kim Jong-un.
I think it signals perhaps Kim is now ready to stand on his own 2 feet and consolidate the North Korean power system as a one-man leadership system.
Live connections happened on this day as well.
We begin this evening with news out of North Korea. The communist state has confirmed the ousting of Hwang Sung-hee.
The news of Hwang Sung-hee's execution is expected to trigger greater uncertainty in inter-Korean relations and also within North Korea's borders.
Let's take a look at the photos making headlines. Now, they were released by North Korea's...
The hottest issues with high tensions. We'll be able to continue seeing Hwang Sung-hee in the center of all the action.
Once again, it's always very interesting to cover news on North Korea because you never know what's happening and you never know what to expect. But finding out, little by little, finding out information on that reclusive regime in itself is, I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, I enjoy it.
A direct clash between a presidential candidate from 2012 and the ruling party candidate.
그러니까 오시면은 그거 잡고 바로 이동해서 우리도 따라 붙어야 할 것 같은데? 아, 예. 뭐 스피치 같은 건 하시나요?
In April, campaign fever from a by-election was as heated as the presidential election just months before, especially at one by-election campaign site in Seoul. Just as the candidates were busy campaigning, National Assembly correspondent Kim Yeon-ji was busy following them. She put in a lot of effort to cover and deliver the live events from the campaign site. Every minute counts, especially when you are on the scene. Yeon-ji couldn't waste any time that day.
Whenever there is a car in news, it's very tough to get the footage for. So you need to kind of follow them using your own car. But at the same time, when they make a stop, you need to get out of your car as soon as possible and then get the footage of the candidate, you know, from various angles. So that was quite challenging as well. 뒤에! 뒤에! 여기 계시는구나. 안녕하세요. 아리랑TV 김yeon-ji 기자입니다. 네, 고생 많으시죠? 예.
Yeon-ji had to put in 2 to 3 times the effort in order to get a few words from the candidate.
이런 식으로
다 하세요.
소통 행보하신 게 언제부터 하셨다고 그랬죠? 그러니까
입국한 다음 날 첫 일정부터 다 이렇게
그러셨어요?
예, 오늘도 하고 뭐 마지막 날까지도.
Election results can only be predicted after the ballot boxes close.
30% of eligible voters have easily surpassed the 40% mark.
Hello, Yeon-ji. What's going on over there?
Hey guys, I'm standing at Shinsange Elementary School.
From the campaign site to the ballot counting, Yeon-ji's job on location continued to the end.
Station to cast their vote after the day's work.
When talking about scenes, the place with dynamic events, the National Assembly, comes to mind. You likely remember the hearing that was held in August. There was a lot of interest in the event, especially because it was when suspicions about National Intelligence Service involvement in the presidential election was ignited. But there was a fierce battle from the start because of a large screen wall over the witness stand. From rude remarks and shouting, Yeon-ji recorded every bit of the story at the National Assembly. And finally, the event escalated with ruling party lawmakers leaving the hearing room.
Because it involved acting and inactive NIS agents, we kind of had to protect their identity, and so the National Assembly ended up putting up a screen wall to, you know, kind of not show their faces and bodies, and so that was very special as well.
The hearing resumed that afternoon. The screen wall was partially cut out, just enough to cover the face of the female NIS officer. The truth seemed far-fetched, even for Yeon-ji.
Every time I report on a certain hearing, I feel this heavy responsibility because our viewers don't have any means to really watch the entire process, you know, the entire hearing process, but I'm there, you know, to really see and hear what's really going on at the hearing, what are the arguments being presented, and then I have to be the person kind of delivering, you know, both sides of the arguments to our viewers.
In November, there was another significant scene at the National Assembly. The largest parliamentary inspection in Korean history.
지금 쌀 수확하고 있지 않습니까? 전면 다 공개해야 됩니다, 이건.
전체 농업을 대변하는 자리이기 때문에 국정감사의 중단은 있어서는 안 된다고 생각합니다.
법령에 규정된 범위를 초과해서 추가적으로 인상하는 것은 제도의 취지에 맞지 않다, 이런 문제가 제기됩니다.
The topic was about stabilizing the target price of rice. But the issue led to a political conflict, which tragically escalated into crippled operations at the National Assembly. The farmers started to protest during the inspection, and the parliamentary inspection turned into a disaster. The outcry of farmers spilled outside of the parliamentary inspection site.
농민들이 왜 새벽부터 입국해까지 와가지고 이렇게 해야 되는지 정말 모르겠습니다.
쌀 목표 가격 23만 원 보장하라.
농사 짓기가 많이 힘드셨던
그렇습니다. 지금 여러분들이 느끼는 것 같습니다. 지금 농민들이 빚이 많이 져갖고 있는데 그 빚을 누구 때문에 졌겠습니까? 내 자식들만 먹여 살리는 것이 아니라 대한민국 국민들 전체를 먹여 살린다는.
There was no shortage of dramatic scenes to capture.
쌀 경작 면적이 늘어나는 거고
네.
또 그것 때문에 정부의 예산 부담이 크다 이렇게 보는 것이 정부의 입장이죠.
It's not like every day that the viewers, hear about the Korean government's stance on this issue of rice prices and things like that. So, yes, it was again another very busy and hectic day, but I was happy to leave the National Assembly that day knowing that I did something good and worthwhile as a reporter.
학생들의 보람은 제자들이 잘 되었을 때 그게 되지 않겠어요?
행복해요. 그러니까 예배 보고 그런 것도 저만 하는 게 아니라 전 세계 15억 무슬림들이 다 굶고 한 마음으로 예배 보면서 그 월을 보낸다는 생각을 하면
이렇게 한국어를 배웠으니까 쉽게 취업할 수 있었어요.
The news. It might have a strict format, but it all boils down to the people.
행렬을 하고 역행렬을 알려면 뭘 알아야 되냐면 그냥 일반 연산을 일반 연산, 4층 연산을 하지.
There were many stories about interesting people in reporter Connie Lee's coverage this year.
-2 곱셈에 대한 이해 요구는 표현 거기에 대한 설명이 나와 있지.
Do you remember the teacher who teaches the most visual subject, math, despite a visual impairment, and his students learning through a braille book?
잠깐 인터뷰를 할까요? 선생님이 이렇게 하나씩 계산 같은 거 할 때도
되도록이면은 혼자 풀 수 있게 해주시고 모를 때 같이 풀어주시고.
For my story, I didn't want to focus on his disability too much because that's not the point. On this Teacher's Day, I wanted to recognize teachers who still have that passion of teaching and have that respect from students and really just believed in their work and had pride over their work.
제가 눈높이를 학생들한테 맞출 수 있어가지고 학생들하고도 대화가 되고 그 대화를 하면서 모든 것이 해결이 잘 되거든요. 그래서 학생들한테는 좀 대화가 통하는 교사가 되고.
Connie's story showed that a teacher and students can communicate with the heart and not the eyes. There was also the story about Korean Muslims who make up a very small portion of the population.
70년도부터 이제 이슬람교 이렇게 믿는 사람들이 더 이제 많아졌다고 들었는데
6.25 동란 이후에 1955년도에 이제 이슬람이 조금씩 늘기 시작했습니다. 그래서 60년대, 70년대를 맞이하면서 이제 중동붐이라는 아주 중요한 역사적인 또 계기를 마련하게 되고요.
I learned that there are more than 30,000 Korean Muslims currently living in Korea, and so I thought it would be interesting to kind of look into their lives and to see if they face any different challenges.
What does it mean to live as a Muslim in Korea? Washing hands and feet before entering the mosque as a cleansing act of body and soul. Connie met with a young Korean Muslim after a long search. And through him, we got to learn about the Islamic faith, which is not all that familiar for Koreans. We could also listen to some of the challenges of being a Korean Muslim.
어딜 가도 이제 사람들 만나면은 술자리가 항상 이어지고 항상 누굴 만날 때도 저 때문에 다른 음식을 이제 찾아서 헤매야 되고 다른 사람들이 오히려 제가 이제 있는 거를 불편해하고 눈치를 보고 저도 눈치 보게 되고 행복해요. 그러니까 뭐 예배 보고 그런 것도 저만 하는 게 아니라 전 세계 15억 무슬림들이 다 굶고 한 마음으로 예배 보면서 그 월을 보낸다는 생각을 하면 되게 설레고 기다려지죠.
After talking to a few Korean Muslims, I realized that there are some challenges, and so that's why I wanted to focus my story on some of the challenges, and also the fact that they're actually that they're looking forward to Ramadan.
Connie also has let us meet with people from all around the world, those who have something in common, their affection for Hangul, the Korean language. The Korean writing contest held in October provided an arena for celebration and challenge for the participants.
Hi, I'm from ArirangTV. Do you guys speak English?
Yeah.
Yes, where are you guys from?
I'm from Sweden.
Sweden? And France, okay.
I've been here since December. I came because I want to work for a Swedish company in Korea. So I'm learning.
The Swedish youth who came to Korea with a goal.
Yeah.
And the Japanese female students looking as happy as if they were on a field trip. We were glad to meet them all. One foreign student who wrote a nice poem with as much Korean he knew stays in the memory.
Hunger was kind of the common thread that brought everyone together. And so it was really amazing to see people of different nationalities and of all ages to come to learn Hangul and appreciate the language.
There were many participants who came to Korea with different stories, and there were some unforgettable people.
안녕하세요. 축하합니다. 혹시 벨라루스에서 오셨는데 한국말 어떻게 배우게 됐어요?
독학으로 주로 배웠고 또 한국 친구들 만나서 이렇게 배웠어요.
한국 친구들 원래 집은 벨라루스?
벨라루스 국적이에요. 예.
그 부모님은 한국 분?
저는 100년 전에 우리 할아버지, 증조 할아버지 그 러시아 동쪽으로 이민하셔서 이제 그다음에 강제 이주 통해 이제 카자흐스탄으로 가셔서.
Connie also introduced someone who came from faraway Egypt to learn Korean.
숨은 언어를 배우면 나중에 졸업해서 쉽게 취업할 수 있다고 생각해서 이렇게 한국어 학과를 이렇게 입학하는 것을 결정했어요.
The stories of people among the more complicated and intense news stories. They provided a heartwarming experience for the viewers and for In the Newsroom in 2013.
Public and private funds to address issues regarding
the largest annual army event.
The Arirang reporters who delivered the stories of the hottest issues, scenes, and people throughout the whole year. In the Newsroom will again be with them next year as they keep up with their dedication to bringing us the most interesting and heartwarming stories.
America, I've been learning Korean for 9 months.